Good morning. It is in the 40s, like 43 out here by the water. But I have a lovely bird hunting here. The sky colors are coming in, and these three little sad looking trees down here on the bottom are junipers. I think there was another couple over the years since I've been taking pictures here, but looks like my eagle's up over there. And some of the other birds are flying by. I'm going to continue our reading. Thank you for being with me. You know I appreciate you. All right, chapter 9. Kings and Queens. Who was I? I called myself Etta James. It said Etta James on my records. Sometimes the MC introduced me as Peaches, Miss Etta James. Sometimes they called me the young Etta James. Etta James was a person I was trying to be, a woman I thought I should be. But underneath the pose and clothes, I was still James Etta, a wide-eyed woman child looking around at a world that amazed and baffled me. Naturally, I didn't want to let on. Didn't want anyone to know what confusion might be running through my brain. So I acted tough. I imitated those artists who took a tough stance and carried an attitude that no one or nothing could hurt them. Like every teenager, I wanted to be viewed as an adult. So I painted on cat eyes and poured myself into cup dresses, those super tight things that came halfway up the thighs with a split up the back until you could practically see my ass. After the demise of the long gown, the cup dress was all the rage, and I had it down to a science. I'd run over to Woolworth, buy a plain black cotton dress, and cut and narrow the back seam to form a cup. Then I'd more or less pick up my ass and lay it in there. Back then, all the gals' asses were hanging out of cup dresses. Naturally, the cup dress rode up too high, but part of the fun was always tugging it down, pretending I wanted to keep it down. I'd wear it with cheap pumps and no nylons for that hoary look, where the cats could see the sweat on my legs. My platinum hair was fashioned in a ducktail, swooping high in front like a rooster, with great big hoop earrings. The look Dorothy Dandridge brought to town in Carmen Jones. I was ready to roll. I didn't know that I didn't know who I was. Out of instinct or fear or peer pressure or protection or God knows what else, I grew a hard shell. I wasn't aware that part of me was hiding out. I wasn't aware of many things. I didn't think about how normal girls my age were still in high school wearing bobby socks and dating football players, going out for malt shakes and necking in Chevy convertibles, dreaming of getting married and learning to make apple pies. I'm glad I didn't go that way, trapped in some kitchen. I'd surely have had a nervous breakdown. Excuse me. But I really never had a choice. I was off and running down the road of hard knocks. I'm sorry. Just made that up entirely. I was off and running down the road of hard rocking rhythm and blues. And if I'm thinking now about what it all means at the time, I wasn't doing much thinking at all. I was just living. Meeting people like Little Richard. He called himself King Richard and would get mad if you didn't recognize his royalty. I loved him. I thought he was brave to put out his personality in such an individual way. He had the guts to be a king and queen all at the same time. Everyone knows that without Richard, there'd be no Michael Jackson or Prince. He led the way, making it all right to be weird, wedding his weirdness to his creativity. Richard was a sweetheart. They take it to the max screamer, banging his piano, jumping into the audience, crazing the kids with his Lucille and Long Tall Sally and Good Golly Miss Molly. Richard was a raver before his time. When I started traveling with Richard in the mid-50s, though, I saw he was real insecure when he really didn't need to be. He needed to be adored. He couldn't get enough attention and love. There was a time when, if you wanted to see him in his funky hotel, you had to announce yourself to the man stationed in front of his door. "Richard in?" I'd ask. "You mean King Richard?" His man would insist without a smile. I couldn't stomach that kind of crap, and I told Richard so. I'd just bust on in there and say, "What is this King Richard bullshit?" He'd laugh about it and give me a big hug. After all, he was a kid just like me. I respected that he was openly gay with his colleagues, but he didn't flaunt it, didn't swish up and down the street. He was cool with his lifestyle. It was a time of crazy orgies, and Richard, along with nearly everyone else, was a willing participant. Man, I saw some stuff. One of the wildest parties took place in Philly. The funny part is that I went as a chaperone, if you can believe it, for the Shirelles, the girl group. Maybe because I had been on the road for a couple of years, their manager thought I was halfway responsible and told them they could only attend if I went along. Might as well have given the girls over to the devil. After our gig at the Uptown Theater, the party was set up at a big suite at the Mansfield Hotel, a converted apartment house. Little Richard was on the show, and so were Tommy and Jimmy Hunt, who thought they could sing. They were so beautiful they didn't have to sing. Professor Alex Bradford, the gospel singer, wasn't on the show, but he was sure at the party. When it came to partying, the gospel gang could swing all night long. The Shirelles knew that the Flamingos and the Spaniels would be there, which is why the girls were so hot to trot. Girl groups and boy groups were always playing musical beds. In my heart, I knew the Shirelles had no business being there. Neither did I. But my peak freakery got the best of me, and I couldn't stay away. I wanted to see it all. The first thing I saw was Bo Diddley making movies. Bo's been making movies, private movies, for over 30 years. Child, Bo's got him some home movies you wouldn't believe. So there he was, going from room to room with his camera, aiming his lens at all the juiciest action. And there I was, with the Shirelles giggling behind me, trying to keep them out of rooms where they didn't belong, rooms where I could see the glow of Bo's horny camera. The hotel suite was a maze of corridors and hidden corners, and I didn't know where to look first. With the Shirelles looking over my shoulder, I opened a bathroom door, only to slam it closed. "I didn't know men did things like that to each other," said one of the Shirelles. Down at the far end, I saw the glow of Bo's camera lighting up the transom above an ornate double door. I heard the sound of familiar voices. Something hot was happening. Dying of curiosity, I sent the girls off to the kitchen to fix some coffee while I snuck off to see about the room at the end of the hall. The giggles and groans were getting louder. I tested the door to see if it was locked. It wasn't. When I looked inside, there was Bo with his camera pointed to Blondine laying back on the bed. Except for a French beret cocked ace deuce to the side of her head, the girl was buck naked, legs wide open. Right next to her was little Willie John, who, talking to the camera, was the tour guide, exploring her privates with his fingers while explaining, "Now, this here is so-and-so." Willie was giving an anatomy lesson. "Hey, girl," said Blondine when she saw me. "How you?" She was talking like we were at the laundromat drying our clothes. Lord have mercy, was all I could say. But Blondine just smiled and waved, like letting Willie show off her wares was the most natural thing in the world. Little Richard was also in the room, enjoying the show. By then, the Shirelles had snuck their way in, and I had to shoo them out. After all, the chaperone does have some responsibilities. Okay. Another chaperone. Here's another story. Another chaperone. A chaperone for me. Popped me back into the picture. Dorothy. At 2:30, Dorothy was no more suited to be a chaperone than me. I was 18 and I couldn't keep Dorothy out of the action, at least not for long. I've often wondered why. Maybe it's because I was so young, or maybe because the force of my mother's personality was so strong. One way or another, she always found a way back into my life. And one way or another, I've let her in. It was Dorothy who got me to change booking agents. She thought I should be making more money, so she took me to New York to meet Billy Shaw. With one of the biggest rosters of black talent, Billy got me into the black theaters, the Apollo in Harlem, the Royal in Baltimore, and the Howard in D.C. It was in Washington where I met Harvey Farquhar, who turned out to be my first full-fledged boyfriend. Harvey was a cool character. Older than me by 9 or 10 years, he was in his late 20s and had started the moon glows. There's a little bird hunting down here. Let's see if I can get us in. It's so cold that my camera stand is not happy. Sorry if that made anybody sick. Okay. Harvey was a cool character. Older than me by 9 or 10 years. He was in his late 20s and had started the Moonglows, the most in-tune harmonizing group in all of doo-wop. Some considered Harvey the daddy of doo-wop. He was a smooth singer himself, a fine writer, and an extra talented all-around musician. Just as Georgia Gibbs had copied some of my songs and Pat Boone had copied Fats Domino and Little Richard, the McGuire sisters ripped off the Moonglows sincerely and outsold the original 4-1. In the mid-50s, though, everyone in the black community knew the Moonglows as one of the classiest, most mellow of the boys groups, with songs like See-Saw and 10 Commandments of Love. Harvey had even invented a new style of harmony. We called it blow harmony, where instead of saying do, 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 his boys sang hoo, hoo, hoo. They put a little whistle in their sound. There were lots of sides to Harvey. He could come on like a Kentucky gentleman. Other times he had the crafty con man moves of a pimp. Raised in Louisville, he had a honey molasses voice and a debonair manner. As I told you, I was secretly in love with my Uncle Frank, and Harvey reminded me of him. He was tall, and he had Uncle Frank's stature. Later he got new dentures, but when I first saw Harvey, he was sporting 2 or 3 gold teeth across his mouth, which I thought was hip. Of course, he had his wavy process hairdo, and when he sang, his hair fell in his face. That also impressed me. I wouldn't call Harvey super sexy, but his Black Panther skin turned me on. Harvey was also a promoter and a hustler, something that I didn't see till a little later. What I first saw was this handsome man wearing bedroom slippers and a baseball cap. An easygoing guy experienced in music and life, always casual and extra slick. Though I had my eyes on Harvey from the get-go, it took a while for us to get together. Actually, it was Bobby Lester, the lead singer for the Moonglows, who was trying to catch me. Bobby had an on-again, off-again relationship with the group, and Harvey didn't pick him up till the tour was underway. Bobby was the original chicken hawk on you the second he saw you. A sensational vocalist, he was really the voice of the Moonglows, singing lead on all their big hits. Bobby Lester was another cool one. He kept his hotel room perfumed with floral spray and stuffed a towel under the door to keep the weed smoke from floating out. Bobby turned up as a junkie early in the game. Fact is, he was one of the first junkies I met. He'd been chain smoking and sniffing plenty heroin, and although I watched with interest, I wasn't ready for a taste of smack myself. Later on, I saw him break out the needles and knew he was serious about getting high. Bobby was also the first cat to mention Chess Records to me, the Chicago label who recorded the Moonglows. Modern had me go to New Orleans a couple times, where I recorded in Cosimo Matassa, Cosimo Matassa, Cosimo Matassa famous studio, the home of Fats Domino. The Baharis also sent along Jimmy Beasley to play piano and Maxwell Davis to supervise. They wanted to capitalize on Fats' success and sound and used a lot of the players associated with Fats and Little Richard. Lee Allen, Justin Adams, Dave Bartholomew, and Earl Palmer. We cut some good sides like The Pickup, where I carry on a sexy conversation with Harold Baptiste tenor. Tough Lover, which I wrote and delivered in a heavy Little Richard bag. Marketplace, Baby, Baby Every Night, and How Big a Fool. The style was still nitty-gritty hard rock and R&B with a slightly gumbo flavor. You could hear me on the radio and you could see me at the clubs. As Marie Adams sang, I'm going to play the honky-tonks, and I did. But there were no big hits. I was far from being a star. Okay. If you want to be a big star, Bobby Lester told me, get on Chess. The Chess brothers are some smart Jews who knew how to sell records. I filed the thought in the back of my mind as I went on my merry way, falling head over heels in love with Bobby's boss, Harvey, from Jump Street. This was basically a one-sided love affair. For all the time we went together, which was a couple of years, I was faithful. I considered myself Harvey's old lady, though that was naive. See, Harvey was a player. He had different women, and I was just one of them. In my heart, I knew I was fooling myself, but I was young and stupid, and I thought all my earrings. I took all my earrings and bought him diamonds and hi-fi sets. I thought buying him gifts would help me keep him. With people I like, that's always been my pattern, my hope, my fear. Sexually, I was too young to know the relationship was lacking. Only later would I learn about the kind of satisfaction. For now, I looked on Harvey as my man. He was older and worldly and the boss of his own sound. He eased through the world of music and promotion with a sort of slippery sophistication I found exciting. And here's the next one. Harvey was one kind of daddy. John Lewis was another. John Lewis became the most important man of my young life. Maybe because we were never lovers. John was smart enough not to confuse issues. Our relationship outlasted all my romances. John became my mentor, my manager, and the man who, more than anyone, laced my boots to real life. His background interested me. I met him when I was 17 and just getting started. His father was Howard Lewis, the big-time black promoter out of Dallas. In the 50s, Howard and Don Roby, R-O-B-E-Y, divided up Texas. Don, who was a blue-eyed soul brother, took Houston and the south side of the state. Howard took Dallas and North Texas. They'd worked the railroads together and were once big buddies. They were also gamblers and finally ferocious competitors. Don started Duke and Peacock Records and made a fortune with Big Mama Thornton, Johnny Ace, and Bobby Bland. Howard's money came with promotion and management. He put on tours with Bill Doggett, Fats Domino, and every act that you can think of. He set up Ray Charles in Dallas. Ray used to sleep on the stage of the Empire Room, the club Howard owned on Hall Street. Dallas is where Ray put together his original small band, the Great Group with Fathead Newman, and where Howard set Ray up with Jeff Brown, Ray's first manager. Dallas is also where I first met John, Howard's black sheep son. John had a brown-skinned face and resembled an Indian. At 6'4", he was distinguished-looking and smart like a fox. Him and his sister Mildred were geniuses. Their father had schooled them at an early age and had them working the door at his clubs and road managing the tours. They had good educations. They could handle money, making a deal and analyze the subtleties of show business finances better than anyone I'd ever met. John could charm the skin off a snake. Women loved him. He had run out to California where he'd been a pimp. It was when a white movie actress fell for him, though, that he got into trouble. She wound up working as his call girl. John had gone with all kinds of well-known black singers in L.A., Sally Blair, Specky Green, back in the days of Dorothy Dandridge. But when he was caught selling this white woman's favors, well, that's when they busted him big time and sent him out of the state on a floater. He came home to walk the straight and narrow and take care of his daddy's business. But he could never be entirely straight. He was too streetwise, too brilliant and conniving to play according to the rules. He was about Harvey's age when I met him, probably 10 years older than me. But unlike Harvey, he thought big. He never worried about my relationship with Harvey. He saw Harvey was using me, but it was small time. If I bought Harvey a gold chain, it hardly mattered. Years later, though, when I started going with real-life pimps and signing their car notes, John intervened and hipped me to the dangers. John cared about me. That's something I felt from the minute I met him. He recognized my talent and saw underneath my bluster. When it came to business, he saw I was winging it, and he'd take time to explain about advances and royalties and getting club owners to pay up front. He knew I could be lazy and scheming, but his schemes put mine to shame. I couldn't get anything past John Lewis, which is why I respected him. From 1957 until 1964, when he went off to prison, he managed the unmanageable Etta James as well as anyone. My crazy times were just beginning. Hi, friends. Good morning, guys. I didn't see they all came in my tree. Well, I yet again didn't quite catch that sun. It's coming. And those are all my friends over there. I told you that they like to be read to. But these are very specific friends. These are my regular friends. We could go with audience. It's like they know I didn't have my puppy dog today. There comes that sun, but I'm going to let you see my friends. See him? They're right there in that tree. And there goes a row of birds. They're waiting on the sun so they can get warmed up. Hi, babies. Pretty birds. On a side note, one of them is not like the others. See, there's one in the other tree. Like, let's see if I can put my finger in. I can't tell where the camera is to put my finger in. One is on the top of the tree over there, and then 3 are over there. A large percentage of the time, the one by itself is not like the others. Here comes some more. The sun is coming, so I'm going to hold this on here just a minute longer, and you can see all my friends, all my buddies are floating across the water. I'm so excited right now. Sorry to break up the silence, but I'm pretty sure that the one in the other tree is my eagle. Okay, nothing is mine. Is an eagle. Because he's by himself. And then see all these blackbirds, otherwise known as buzzards. They are the babysitters. And I've not ever been able to catch them. So I should probably stop filming this and make a different one. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I appreciate you. Thanks for letting me read another chapter to you. Have a beautiful day, if you want to.